Hello, everybody. The Worm here. I'm here for a late night recording session of Raging Loop. Of course, it's late night for me, but it may, in fact, not be for you. It's been a long day, but I'm ready to settle down with some of this. Settle down. That may not be the correct way to describe the experience with this. There may, in fact, be some horrifying things that occur. So, I'm ready. I'm ready for something. I'm ready for some excitement. I guess I'll say that certainly. Last time we sort of began our investigation, as much as it could be called that. Haruaki is definitely he definitely wants to get to the bottom of this, for his own sake as well as the sake of anyone else. He feels like he is a potential target, and he believes that in order to best survive this situation, he needs all the information he can get, as well as his own natural curiosity about what's going on. So he has more than one reason for investigating the situation. And last time we learned a few things. We learned a bit about we learned a bit about Mochi. Interestingly enough, he certainly has some unique circumstances he's living in, having been ostracized and disowned. And he doesn't seem to really care about much, but, last time I used the term absent-minded, but I think that was probably the wrong term to use, because Mochi is actually very attentive and is able to understand some complex interpersonal relationship stuff. Yeah, in particular, what we got was the strange love triangle that Haruaki seems to have wandered into between Haru, Yasunaga, Chiemi, and now himself. So it's a bit complicated, and Mochi seems to have a kind of a natural sense of, maybe almost like a strategic mind, because he said that he felt that Takumi had made a mistake when he announced that he was the snake. He couldn't really explain why. He just said he felt like he could hear the wolves laughing. So maybe that's just his way of saying, he realizes that it was a mistake, and but he can't. Oopsie daisy. 1 second. Sorry about that. I'm just dropping stuff now, huh? All right. Excuse me. Yeah, I think I got that point across. And so thus Haruaki also learned that Takumi was in fact the snake. And Mochi also hangs out with the old man. We learned a bit more about Takumi. Apparently there was a landslide from the construction at the Nasato estate or something like that. Was that the construction office we saw when Haruaki first got here? The morning after he arrived, because he met Chiemi at close to midnight, I think. That morning, he did a little recon where he was walking around the village, and we saw a construction office with what looked like a landslide. I'm assuming that's probably what Takumi was referring to. And he talked about he has a lot of experience with moving dead bodies, and that was both the workers and the and apparently fishermen or just strangers who fall into the river. So he obviously has some. Would it be trauma? I'm not sure if he expressed it like that, but certainly that it's left a mark on him, in some manner. And it's interesting. We it's been, I've said it a few times now, and the game has shown it a few times by this point. But we had a bit more indicating the kind of the way that Takumi is skeptical about the supernatural, while Chiemi actually has a more of a belief in it than Takumi does, which I just find fascinating. We talked about it with Kaori. There was the prayer song that Chiemi and Haru did, which I'm pretty sure is what we heard on the speaker, and that's definitely something. It's so strange that this is such a small village, and yet they have a speaker that they play the prayer from. It's I don't know. There's something a bit odd with that to me, but nothing too definitive. I guess it's just the fact that there's so few of them. Why would they need to? Anyway, let's continue. Had some cute moments with Meiko and Rikako, and I think that's pretty much it. I think that's where we left off. So I think this episode will probably just be us continuing our investigation. So let's get back to it. Gotta always keep a water bottle with you. Stay hydrated. Keep your throat in better condition. Okay. When I came back to the dining hall, I found the students, Chiemi and Yoshitsugu-kun, Yasunaga's little brother. Meiko had left. Oh, sorry, I found that a bit odd to read. I get it, yeah.
Uncle-man! じゃない! Hassan!
Oh, Mochi's here. Okay. Yes, we did get a new nickname. That was good. Far better than our previous one. Yes.
Uncle-man?
何それ?
The name still got a chance to spread. That aside, I had to find out what happened at today's feast. Recalling what Mochi told me made this kinda hard.
悪いけど、ちょっとちえみちゃん借りていい?
わお、ちえみさん大人気。だからあなたは懲りないわね。
はるちゃん、いいから僕らは母さんを手伝おう。
If I got the relationship dynamics right, it's Haru likes Yosunaga, who likes Chiemi. Chiemi doesn't really like Yasunaga romantically. You know, friendly with him, but not romantically. But Haru-chan, due to her liking Yasunaga, is trying to get Yasunaga and Chiemi together, even though she actually likes Yasunaga. And so Haruaki, entering the situation and getting buddy-buddy with Chiemi, is throwing a wrench in Haru-chan's plans, even though it would technically free Yasunaga up to be with her. You know, it's somewhat complicated, but I think I understand it. Yeah.
兄ちゃんも何か言ってよ。
多分難しい話なんだよ。
僕は皿を叩き割る係。
Let's not break plates, please.
はるちゃん、近持くんを押さえつける係。
何よこれ。ごめんね、なんかバタバタして。
安永くんと何を話してた？
さっきの宴でね、ちょっとまずいよねって。
Am I? Yes, okay. Yeah, I figured it was something like that.
匠さんがヘビって名乗ったと近持くんから聞いたんだけど。
うん、そうなんだよね。
他にヘビは？
他？いや、ヘビは一人だし。
One snake, two monkeys. One spider, one crow? Yeah. The mountain gave 4 kinds of guardians. The snake could ask the mountain whether one of the participants was a wolf or not. The monkey was the only one of which there were 2. They had the power to know who the other monkey was. And the monkey is by definition not a wolf, right? The crow could determine whether the person who was lynched the previous day was a wolf or not. And the spider could ask God to protect one of the participants from the wolf's attacks. Honestly, if this so-called God really had that power, I'd complain to him that he should protect everyone. And as far as I knew, anyone who didn't have a guardian was either a powerless human or a wolf. The humans could kill a person during the day, while the wolves could kill a person during the night. It was a battle for survival. The humans had to do everything to find and kill the wolves. If they couldn't find a single wolf during the feast, the whole event was completely meaningless. The wolves would simply crush the settlement.
殺人の是非を一旦脇に置くならば、今日狼容疑者を選べなかったことは単純に一日ロスだよね。
Yeah, but they didn't have any evidence. None of the guardians. Well, because it was the first night, right? So they didn't have an opportunity to use their powers. And I'm a bit shaky on the journalists. They were killed by corruption, right? Because they didn't do the preparations? Not the wolves? Because it was 2 people killed, right? The wolves can only kill 1 person. Yeah, so it was the corruption that killed them. So they didn't count, technically speaking. So yeah, we don't have any information yet to work with.
そうだね。そのこともさっきヤス君と話してた。
そして実質ヘビの正体が確定してしまった。
うん。ちょっと嫌な状況だね。
She understood it well. We couldn't expect the help of the police or getting a forensic investigation. Not to mention, we were up against some supernatural monsters. As things were, the snake's power was the only way to find out who was a wolf or not. In other words, losing the snake would mean losing their most powerful weapon against the wolves.
でも、多分今日は大丈夫なんだ。クモは匠兄ちゃんを守るようにってことになったから。
I mean, it's not like the spider spoke up and said they would. We're just hoping they are.
待って、クモもバレたのか？
No, we don't.
ヤス君がこの場で明かせば狼にも聞かれるから秘密にしておこうって。
Sharp.
それで肝臓じいちゃんが OK 出して方針が決まったんだ。
正しそうだね。
と思う。ヘビについてもそういう風にできればよかったのかな。
They really should have. It was best to secretly gather info without revealing the guardians. Especially for the snake. He should have kept quiet and used his power to find out as much as reasonably possible before revealing himself. I knew it was difficult to figure out right away, but the fact that the snake, the most important role, was the first to be outed was really bad. From my perspective, Takumi-san had been so focused on protecting Yasumizu himself that he'd made a terrible mistake. Yeah, so that whole interaction, it was because, for one, Takumi didn't really believe the supernatural stuff that was going on, and from what he's saying here, protecting Yasumizu, this was the conversation we had last episode, where, you know, the workers dying in the landslide, or the bodies washing up in the Saranaga, or even the 2 journalists, they're all outsiders. And so he wants to protect Yasumizu and the people in it. So he made a decision based on, you know, what was motivating him, which is what we just talked about. But doesn't seem like that was the best thing to do. He appeared calm, but I wouldn't be surprised if he'd realized this and was actually pretty shaken.
結果どうなると思う？
She asked like she already knew the answer.
クモは言われるがままに匠さんを守る。
Yeah.
当然、狼もそれを聞いているんだから。匠さんを殺そうとすれば、クモが阻むんだろう。どうやるのかは知らないが。
だね。 結果1日分の殺人権をロスする。
So they're gonna kill someone else? Jimmy seemed to process this as a logic game too.
僕が狼なら匠さんは無視して別の誰かを殺す。
I don't think Haruaki knows that Takumi said he was going to check Kyo first, right?
春明さんもそう思うか。ちなみに狙われるとしたら誰かな。
それはわからない。狼側の選択傾向がわからないからね。奴らが女子供の血をすすりたいとかなら、狙われるのは若い子たちだろうし。
Yeah, this is gonna be a toughie because if we're dealing with supernatural creatures here, then, you know, things like normal things you'd think about in something in like a mystery would be like motive, but I don't think we're gonna get something like that here. At least it doesn't seem that way. It seems like, as Haruaki just said in his internal thinking, you know, it's like a logic thing. So I don't know what their priorities are, so I guess we'll find out.
怖い。
大丈夫。ちえみちゃんより若い子がいるから。
殺す。
大丈夫。美人狙いだったら一頭。
許す。でもそれはそれでやだな。殺される前に何されるかわかんないし。
I'm sure there were plenty of things they could conceive. Apparently, there was another layer to the worst possible scenario.
趣味以外の方向で言えば、そうだな。殺すことで村人側が大きく動揺するような人物。
So, one of the elders, maybe?
集落の有力者、あるいは今後のゲーム展開を左右するような優秀なプレイヤー。
肝臓じいちゃん、あるいはヤスくん。
Interesting you say Yasukun here. That seemed likely. Well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. He was basically the peacemaker during the feast, able to calm everyone down and get them on task. That seemed likely. Yasunaga-kun was the only one who'd done something helpful for the villagers this time. He seemed to be the leader of the high schoolers and had a good head on his shoulders. But his ideas required Kanzo Makishima's approval, which made it pretty clear he was a standout. Honestly, I'd expected him to take more initiative than he had, but the fact he considered the younger people's opinions showed real leadership skills. In any case, he wasn't someone the humans wanted to lose. Oh yeah.
匠さんが誰を調べるかは決めたの？
Here it is. Yep.
うん、清之助さん。
何そのチョイス？
何って本人の希望で。あと人間関係的に不利な人から優先的に調べて安全性を上げようっていう。
I wasn't so sure about that choice. Those who were confirmed as non-wolves would have much more freedom to act. At the very least, they wouldn't be suspected as wolves who were just trying to exploit the situation during the feast. That being the case, shouldn't they have opted to choose a potential leader to investigate? Well, I didn't really know if Kinosuke no Satoshi's had the skills, but from what I could tell, he definitely lacked the influence to lead. If they wanted to secure a reliable leader, they should have went for someone like Kanzo Makishimashi. But wait.
もし蛇の対象がその夜に狼にやられてしまうなら、蛇が無駄になるか。
I did have this thought at the time. I think I said something like, what if he asks if Kinosuke's the wolf and then he's dead the next morning?
死んだ人はカラスが調べればいいことだから。
違うよ。夜に殺されるのは狼が選ぶんだから間違いなく人間だよ。カラスはあくまで昼に宴で選ばれて殺された人の正体を知れるだけ。
Okay. Was I aware of that distinction? I don't know.
あ、そうか。確かに。
Whatever the case, perhaps investigating Kinosuke wasn't that much of a mistake. Did that mean they were actually doing a decent job? Well, it'd be pretty bad if Kanzo Shi was the one to go. Chemi looked gloomy. She and I probably felt that it wasn't a complete blunder, but still had a bad feeling about it. During the feast, everyone had to lock themselves somewhere all alone, around every sunset. It was called sheltering. Well, I could understand it, considering the legends, but I'd still wondered why the students didn't go to school. It was a weekday. When I'd asked, they just told me, why would we leave when it's so dangerous? The idea that they couldn't leave when the mist was here was so popular, it affected their daily lives. Also, the people at Kama Fujiyoshi had to know that Yasumizu was covered in mist, right? Considering the school there probably had few students to begin with, the non-presence of the 3 from Yasumizu would normally be a serious problem. I knew it was a settlement for the ostracized, but did they really neglect this place that badly? Looking at it from that angle, it was safe to assume that the local villages, Kama Fujiyoshi included, actually concealed the Feast of the Yomi Purge. I thought about that and similar things in room 203 of the student dorm, the place I was given. Chami had given me some cup robin and hot water. We chatted for a moment about being neighbors for a while, and then she returned to her room. Weird we could be so casual about this, considering there's a chance we wouldn't meet again tomorrow. After dinner, I took a bath. The gas boiler was pretty damn old, so learning how to use it took a while. There were some working electrical outlets, too, so I could charge my phone. Oh, how about that? I didn't have a wristwatch, so that was important. By the way, my room didn't have a kitchen. I was pretty sure that the other rooms didn't either. From what I could tell, no one here actually cooked or ate at their own homes. They all relied on the dining hall to provide their meals. This settlement had not only a unique culture, but a way of life as well. I couldn't help but wondering how something like this began and survived into the modern era. It was an interesting subject to research, but for now, I had to worry about the fact that my life was in danger. Anyway, what were my options now? I wasn't part of the feast, but walking around at night was probably dangerous regardless. After all, I had memories of getting killed doing exactly that. From a logical standpoint, that was probably just a dream. But it had a quality to it that made it hard to believe it was. I had to be careful until I was certain. Then again, I had a record of surviving just by not making any noise at night. Maybe I should have stayed awake and looked around. Also, Takumi-san had said they were going to have someone keep watch at night, didn't he? Was he going to do it himself? Considering the snake's important, he shouldn't do something so dangerous. Shit. They'd barely decided anything in the feast. I wasn't getting enough info either. I felt like I barely knew the basics. Talking during the feast meant giving info to the wolves, but if the humans kept too many things hidden, the wolves would end up knowing way more than them, and that was just dangerous. Still, there was a limit to what I could do in my situation. If I kept being the messenger I was today, I could create a huge imbalance of info myself. Not to mention, I could be deemed suspicious and lose the residents' trust. Shit, what was I supposed to do here? Was it best for me to just stay quiet and wait for the feast to end? That wasn't like me at all. There was a mail slot on the door. I opened it up, and looked outside. Everything was still covered in mist, so I couldn't see much. I could only see the handrail and the branches going in the hallway. But maybe I could see some intruder if I kept staring? Not likely. After all, this was the room at the end of the second floor, and Haru-chan's and Chami's rooms were closer to the stairs, so I couldn't see anyone going to attack them. The only time I could see the monster come would be when it was coming for me. Maybe keeping watch like this was the important thing if I wanted to stay alive, but I found it hard to put my own life on the priority list. For some reason, I felt like if I died, I'd just go back to the starting point. Yeah, better not think that. Anyway, I had to stay awake. I still had many things to worry and think about. Wednesday. Wednesday. What? Oh. As I woke up and tried to move, my head rubbed against something tough and then smacked into the doorknob. I writhed in pain. What was going on? Did I fall asleep against the door? Was I more tired than I thought? I was glad I didn't die and all, but this was a failure in my eyes. Sleeping in an unnatural position made my whole body hurt. I wobbled over to my fully charged phone. It was 6 o'clock. That was early morning for me. I'd have loved to just go back to sleep, but I was too curious about the feast. After washing my face with hot water and putting on my shoes, I decided to take a peek through the mail slot. Ooh. Outside, I saw Chiemi, standing there with a knife in hand. I reflexively stepped back, tripped, and fell on my ass. What the hell was that? There was a woman standing before my room with a weapon. I'd only caught a glimpse, but that was enough for me to conclude I was dealing with a scene straight out of a horror movie. What could have prompted this? Did she suspect I was a wolf? Or was she a wolf herself? She knocked on the door, making me squeal a bit.
Haruaki-san,起きてる?
Would she kill me if I replied?
ハルアキさん起きて。他のみんなの様子を見て回るから付き合ってほしいんだ。ちなみに私は現在凶器を所持してますが、ご信用につき心配なきよう。
紛らわしい。
あ、起きてた。大丈夫大丈夫。ほら、凶器はちょっと離れたところに置きました。
Okay, she says that. I hesitantly peeked through the mail slot and saw her hopping around, showing me her empty hands. After meeting up with Chiemi... Ooh, okay. Yeah, ooh, no horror scene just yet. After meeting up with Chiemi, we went around the dorm and woke up the students. All of them were alright. Well, they got ready. I'm wondering if, assuming supernatural business is going on here, which I think it's probably pretty much the case that it is, because the mist, we tried to leave and the mist got us, and, the whole dying and resurrecting thing. I'm wondering if, even if you try to stay up, if, whatever supernatural power is causing all this just forces you to fall asleep, Maybe not. Maybe he just got tired, but the way he described it was kind of interesting. While they got ready, we went to the Nasato mansion just because it was close. Yasumizu was still misty and unpleasantly silent. I walked carefully, just like yesterday morning. I couldn't write off the possibility that a werewolf would jump out of the mist and tear me apart. It'd be over for me. I was walking ahead, dragging Chiemi by the hand, careful about where I was going. If something happened, and I got eaten or something, Chiemi could either fight back or run away.
誰かいるのか。
あ、野里さん、夫妻子と千恵美ちゃんです。
どこだ。そこか。
We peered through the mist, and a gloomy frown appeared.
いやー、どうも。
屋敷は大丈夫だったみたいですね。
当然だろう。屋敷には古臭いながらもセキュリティ設備が設けられている。化け物だろうが侵入できるとは思えんね。
I mean, I feel like they could just hop the gate. In any case, looks like Kinosuke's still around. So the wolves did not go for the kill Kinosuke strategy.
そっか。じゃあみんなで避難させてもらえます？
なぜそんなことをせねばならんのかね。これは安水の問題だろう。
そっか、そうですよね。じゃあ安水の問題解決のためとっとと下に降りてます。
待ちたまえ。急ぎ動かないと危険だろ
う。Really? I was beginning to think this guy was best described as all bark, no bite. Though prideful and vain, he wasn't as smart as he claimed to be, as shown by his inability to take charge of the feast. Also, his fussy attitude was probably just him making up for his fear. It was entirely possible he was just putting on an air, and that the mystery of Yasumizu, or rather Fujiyoshi, was actually scaring him. Anyway, we went down here and met up with the students.
慣れた道でも不気味なもんだね。
だね。霧って不思議だ。これなら脱いでも怒られない。
I don't know about mad, but, maybe don't do that.
やめろバカ者。
He'll get mad. Haru Makishima was acting weird. Mochi was definitely expecting a retort from her. She didn't say anything, and her face was so pale you could tell through the mist. Hanging her head, she was lightly shaking. What's the matter, Haru? Everyone else could see it too, but no one chose to address it. That doesn't sound good. Questions would quickly become suspicions, after all. Perhaps she was a wolf and did something horrific last night. As we also thought similar things, she suddenly collapsed onto the ground.
大丈夫か、はるちゃん。
触らないで。
Her hoarse scream shocked everyone.
はるちゃん。
兄ちゃん、違う。ごめん。だけど、今は。
そうだよね。神経質にもなるよ。足元に気をつけて。
We then slowed down. Haru-chan, not touching anyone's hands, was at the rear of the group. So something's really off with Haru-chan this morning. Let's do Wednesday. Wednesday morning, okay. As we walked, trees and stones drifted in and out of visibility through the surrounding mist. Our vision was so limited, it felt like the world around us was changing with every step we took. A tunnel of trees, a path on the paddy field, a stone platform, a concrete stairway. Now I'm going to be interested. Yasunaga was also alive. That's good. I'll be interested to see if Konzo's alive, because if he is, then that means the wolves have a strategy that Haruaki hasn't thought of yet. We walked between realms every passing second. I was still wondering about Haru-chan. What was on her mind? Was she afraid or wary? After descending for a bit, we arrived at the plaza.
みんな無事ね。
Kaori, Takumi, good to see you. We met two more people in front of the dining hall.
ご老人方は朝寝坊かね。
ばあちゃんは身支度中だ。体調が良くねえらしい。
Neither is Haru.
これから来てねえ連中のところを回る。キヨ、お前はついてこい。
Are you gonna give us your report, Takumi?
なぜ君が私に命令する？
男手がいるかもしれねえからだ。不妻子、悪いがあんたも頼むぜ。
Well, just considering how he's acting with Kiyo, I'm assuming that means he's probably not a wolf. I mean, that would be silly, right? This is the first time he'd ordered me to do something. But it wasn't a situation where I could be happy about him relying on me.
ええ、もちろん。
It's not going to be something like really bad like Meiko or Rikako, right? Because even if they're not leaders in a sense or influential, that would be a terrible gut punch. He probably had a bad feeling, namely that he wouldn't be able to rely on a certain someone ever again. As I passed by Kaori-san, I heard her whisper.
あのね、安永、ちょっといい？
何母さん。
義継を探してほしいの。離れにいないようだから。
Well, missing's not dead, but okay. Everyone probably had a bad feeling about this. The three of us guys checked the houses. Yasunaga-kun, Chiemi, and Mochi walked around the settlement. We'd agreed to split up and start searching. The Misty Village was silent. I couldn't hear anyone chatting. I'd seen these buildings from the outside, but it was my first time actually walking in. The shabby buildings, built using blackened planks, were more or less buried in vegetation. Some were on the verge of collapse. The way their frames jutted from the mist reminded me of the carcasses of giant beasts. I walked on a line between the grass, a footpath surely. I often heard something small jump in the grass. It was probably some bugs or frogs, but it still made me flinch.
リカ子さんはここに住んでいるのだったか。
ああ、そこんちだ。
くそ。なんだって彼女がこんな場所に住まねばならん。
So Kinosuke definitely he during the feast, when he was asking to be excused, he also asked for Rikako to be excused. Does he fancy her, or is it a different kind of attachment?
お前が知らねえんだったら俺らが知るわけねえだろうが。身車あたりの指図じゃねえのか？
I beg your pardon? Miguruma's orders.
私が知る限りでは、彼女が休みずに移ったのは自主的とのことだがね。第一必要がない。
Interesting. So she was not ostracized.
ひょっとしたら霧が立つんで魔除けのまじないでもしに来たんじゃねえか。
室匠、私ならともかく彼女相手にあんまり口が過ぎるんじゃないかね。相手は上藤吉の長者の正統だぞ。
So does he fancy her, or is he so, invested in this whole head family thing that he has this kind of respect for her in that way?
知るか、ここは安水だ。あいつ自分で言ってたろうが、宴になりゃみんな食われんだよ。
リカ子さん、リカ子さん、ご無事ですか？
Apparently, Takumi didn't like the Uematsu family, or the four head families in general. Now that I thought about it, though she wasn't as disliked as Kinosuke-shi, the villagers in general weren't fond of Rikako Uematsu. Really? Certainly she wasn't, it's not like Rikako was in a leadership role at all. Interesting. Okay. It seemed like a pretty obvious outcome, though. Yasumizu was the settlement for the ostracized. It was impossible for a member of one of the head families who openly spurned them to form a good relationship with the locals. Rikako-san emerged before too long. She was wearing her usual strange getup, and she didn't seem any different from how she looked yesterday.
メイコを連れて行きませんと。
We moved on to the next house. It felt like Rikako-san was urging me, so I woke the girl up.
メイコちゃん、朝だよ。
Well, I couldn't imagine Rikako-san raising her voice while the other two probably didn't feel like they had to get involved with the girl. After a few calls, she finally came out, still half asleep.
メイコ、よかった。
キヨ、二人を食堂まで連れて行ってやれ。
リカ子さん、こちらへ。足元に気をつけて。
はい。
She was apparently trying to get my attention, so I turned around and said, yes?
ごめんなさい。
Her sudden apology left me completely confused. She then departed alongside the other two, leaving me alone with Takumi-san.
いいんですか？清之助さんがいなくて。
どうせ役に立たねえ。植松の坊主もどきがくたばってたら運ばせようと思ってたけどよ。
Ooh. Mock priestess, you say? And Rokako apologized to us. She apologized to us before too, right? Or she did something like that before. But why? But why? Why apologize?
もう誰がやられたか分かったから。
Uh-oh.
まだ狼じじい氏の可能性も。
適当言うな。おやっさんが生きてたら誰より早起きしてとっくに休みずを3週くらいはしてるっつうんだ。すまねえ。奥野がおやっさんの家だ。
I followed him in silence. I couldn't think of anything to say. The fact that the door was unlocked made it clear that something wasn't right. The moment I opened it, my nostrils were assaulted by a smell I'd experienced just yesterday. The reek of a fresh corpse. Unlike Takumi-san, who was looking away and cursing, I did my best to burn the scene I witnessed into my memory. I felt like to avert my eyes would be disrespectful, and chided myself for wanting to look away. This body was much more intact than Mamiya-san and Hashimoto-san's. That made it much easier to become painfully aware of the fact that this was a human, an intelligent life form who was with us yesterday like it was no big deal. There was one problem, though. The part of the body that used to be the head was completely destroyed. There was no part of the head left untouched. It was that thorough. It was obviously the result of relentless, heavy, blunt attacks. Everything above the neck was just a strange, flat mass of shattered skull fragments and white and red organic matter. Compared to it, everything else was largely unharmed. The old-looking clothing and the unexpectedly robust chest for someone of his age were all the proof needed to know that this was the body of Kanzo Makishimashi.
片付けるんですか？
So, can we take this to mean that Haruaki's theory is correct? Maybe not yet, but certainly definitely reinforces the thought. I wonder where Yoshitsugu is. Well, let's put down Kanzo. Hmm.
当たり前だろ。
少しだけ時間をください。
どうする気だ。
Investigate.
できる限りのことを調べます。
Since we had no idea when we could get out of here, protecting the scene of the crime for an official investigation meant that we had to leave this body to rot here, and we just couldn't do that. And considering the horrible state it was in, the villagers probably wanted to take care of it their own way as soon as possible. Not much I can do to stop that. Thus, I did my duty as someone without such obligations. This corpse was completely unlike the ones from yesterday. While those two were destroyed completely, the damage on this one was focused on the head. The weapon clearly wasn't sharp. They'd used something blunt. The skin on his face was torn, but not sliced apart, and the skull was shattered. This was caused by repeated blunt attacks on the head. It wasn't my job to picture whether there was some profound grudge in this. The only clear thing here was that the wolves killed him using something blunt, not claws or fangs. And it was obviously done with dedicated intent, not accidentally. At the very least, the entity that made this corpse wasn't the same as the one that made the ones from yesterday. It made sense if you separated them and assumed that yesterday's was the corruption and today's was the wolves. Thank you for confirming my thought. But the thing I'd seen when I was walking around at night at that time had the appearance of a wolf. Or rather, a werewolf. If the werewolves were the ones bringing the corruption, the tale all this was based on would make even less sense. If the corruption was Great Lord Shanai's, the mountain god's, punishment, it'd be weird for it to be delivered by the wolves. Holding back my nausea, I looked back at the corpse. Then I rolled up my sleeves and reached for the destroyed head.
おい、何を。
ないと思いますが、一応調べます。
Decapitation meant body doubles. Mystery Writing 101. If someone brought in and killed a person with a similar build to Kanzoshi's, then left him here, his death could easily be fake.
肝臓さん、下顎に銀歯ありました？
いや、ねえよ。
His voice was strangely forced. I looked at him and realized he was kind of pale. I might have overdone it. Still, I couldn't be soft in this situation.
おやっさんは60過ぎて差し歯も何にも入れてねえの自慢してたから。あったのか？
いえ、誘導を避けるための質問です。健康な歯がびっしりですよ。
なんだよ。
The lower jaw was mostly intact, while the upper one was destroyed along with the rest of the head. Despite that, I saw a hint of the old man in the eyebrows and the dark hair with streaks of gray in them. It was pretty clear it was the one and only Kanzo Magashimashi, so it was pointless. Excuse me. So it was probably pointless to keep thinking about the way he was injured. My hands were all messy. I'd have to wash them later. The corpse aside, Kanzoshi was lying on some thin bedding, and there was no sign of a struggle. He was either instantly killed by the first attack, or knocked out, laid here, and then killed. Still, it wasn't a corpse that was easy to make. The situation here was peculiar. One point I found curious was the fact that Kanzoshi surely obeyed the shelter law and locked himself in. However, the lock on the door was still perfectly intact. So, logically speaking, Kanzoshi had opened the door and let the culprit in. There was no sign of resistance, so it was probably done by someone he felt safe with. However, if this was a normal killing by the standards of the Feast of the Yomi Purge, then this was definitely made possible by something unnatural. Back to the situation at hand. So, obviously the connection is Haru looked pale this morning. Maybe she witnessed this occur? Or, worst case scenario, participated in it. Okay. The futon and everything around it were bloody, obviously. But there was another strange thing about the crime scene, the dampness. Some spots were really wet, and clearly not just because of the mist. It was like the murderer purposely spread some water here. Were they trying to wash away the blood splatter on them? But there was no point in doing it in front of the body. The footprints were faded. Were they trying to cover their tracks? They were still pretty visible, though. It was more like they put bloody footprints on the futon and tatami that was already wet. The shape of the prints told me they weren't made by Western shoes, Japanese clogs, or wild beasts. They were just long ovals, reminiscent of those made by Zori sandals. There weren't many of them, though. Most of the blood was absorbed by the futon. But from what I had, I could tell that there was only one type of footprint.
何か分かったのかよ。
大したことは。
だろうな。あんた別にそっちの専門家じゃねえんだろ。
ええ、残念ながら。
All I knew was that the culprit was a very dangerous human. Okay. We're gonna call it here. We're getting to the time. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go over that whole Haruaki's whole examination of the corpse and the surroundings. I'm gonna have to go through that in detail again. Yeah. And we get a nice new track of music here, huh? Yeah, I mean... Interesting. Yeah, the style of death is so different from the journalists. Yeah, we're gonna need to talk to Haru again, and that's not going to be an easy conversation to have. Okay. We'll meet up again next time for more Raging Loop. We will dive into most of the second day, I think. Hopefully we can find out where Yoshitsugu is. In any case, I hope you're all doing all right, and see you next time.